Hi, welcome to Making Meaning podcast. We're here to do a long form discussion into a hot topic. Today, we're going to do a topic called work. Should we keep doing it? Should we automate it? Should humans just sit on the beach and let the robots do all the work? We're going to find out today. I'm so excited to have our panelists, and we're going to meet Mary Miller. Mary Miller, go ahead and wave, say hi. All right. And we have Jenny Topinka. We have
Hello.
we have Christina Martinez, and we have Martha Padron. So welcome all, and we're going to jump on in. And so whoever has a thought first, please go ahead and come off mute. I want us to talk about the importance of work. And I think we need to get on the same page. What is work? And I've been trying to figure this out. And there's like technical definitions and spiritual definitions. So when you think about work, what is coming up for you? And let's go to Jenny. What are you thinking when you think of the word work?
Well, first of all, I don't know if we can get on the same page because I think it means something different to everyone. Okay. So for myself, I'll speak for myself. So I'm a single female. And so first and foremost, work is a livelihood, right? I want to be an independent woman. And so I work to earn a paycheck, like first and foremost, right? However, when that's beyond that, I do find a lot of meaning in my work. And it's important. I feel blessed that I've had the opportunity to find meaning in my work. And I think it is a way for us to make an impact, to leave a legacy, and really to feel that sense of belonging. And I think that work can bring us a lot of happiness and joy, and that it should. So I'm about 20 years into my work, and that's my take on what it is, Bet.
All right. So I heard it's paid, it's paying your bills, but it's also bringing you meaning and joy. All right. Let's go to Mary Miller. Mary, tell us your definition of work.
Well, I think I want to extend that definition of work beyond employment because I think there is certainly the whole aspect of earning a living so that you can be independent and get on in the world. But I also think there's a lot of work that we do as individuals, whether it be a nonprofit or you know, working with your children or some other thing that actually can be quote unquote work because it's taking an effort, it's taking your intellect, it's taking whatever, your drive, your creativity to accomplish it, but it's not an employment thing. So I think work is also important to all of us beyond being employed, but the work of just being a human being in the world and whatever form that may take.
All right, so it's not just paid labor, it's also possibly volunteering and maybe mentoring. I don't know if mentoring could be in there.
Sure.
Okay, Christina, do you have some ideas on what is work?
Yeah, as both of you are have like gone before me, like what I kind of synthesized from you and from like where I'm at is that work is a transaction of energy. Like that's kind of where I sit with it. So, and I think that kind of like brings together what both of Mary and Jenny have kind of shared. Yeah.
Wow, that's really deep. And let's go to Martha. Martha, what's your thoughts?
I agree with everybody. I believe that we're always working at something, whether we're working in a professional profession, if we're working, around our house, working on our own self well-being. I just think that we're creatures of labor to a certain degree, even with um, even with working out, like you guys do yoga, it's more, it's hard work, it's still a form of relaxation, and yet you're still putting your body through rigors. while it's helping you to clear your mind and relax yourself and just become better.
Wow. Such interesting things just in the first question. Really appreciate it. Okay. So now let's move to why. Why do we work? And with this one, I want us to go back into history and think about the cavemen and women and children and think about their lives. So I'm going to go, let's see who's got an idea around this early human and maybe even before. What was work to these people prehistoric? Yes, Mary, please help us here.
Well, no, I just think, Bet, I don't think they thought of work. I don't think they probably had a word for work. I think they just lived. I mean, times were tough in the old caveman days. So I think a lot of the struggle was just putting food on the table and getting shelter for their little ones. So I don't think I don't think there is a cave word for work, just living.
Maybe, Mary. We need to take that historic time machine and go find out. Martha's really excited about this one. Martha, help us here.
I think they had roles and everybody's role was important. I think that even the children, I think the children had roles that they had to do that we would consider work today. We'd probably consider child abuse today, but I believe that they all had certain roles and that's what they did.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea. Okay, so moving, does anyone else have any ideas on this caveman, cave woman, cave family, people, working, not working, being lazy? Okay, Jenny.
Well, I think so. What I'm hearing, everyone's opening my eyes to new ideas. It's like helping the village and the community survive and thrive, right? They always say it takes a village. I think that's everyone's contribution, aka work, to make that happen. So it's kind of a beautiful thing.
It sounds better from our perspective, I think, but yeah, I like that that view. Back then it was probably challenging. All right, Christina, anything on this one?
I feel like I come to it from a systems perspective because that's just where I'm like from. And it's like if I'm kind of drawing from like energy input, like it's to keep the system functioning. And so like however that work is for that village cave people, like it's just to keep their system functioning, like was their work, their energy input.
I think this is really, I love the different perspectives, and that's why I really wanted to get some different folks on this discussion today. All right. So now we think, let's jump forward to we have farms. Okay, so we're getting agriculture. And now think about how work shifts from what we know about history. I know none of us are historians on here, but thinking about storing grain and making bread and, having livestock. So is there any difference or change from the way that the prehistoric, or I'm talking about the actual like cave folk work versus this more agricultural? Is there any shifts that are notable that we should mention?
I think maybe the roles with women may have changed a little bit because cave times you're thinking more of the women were probably hunter gatherers as well. And then when you look at a traditional farm setting, you have the wives were responsible for caring for the house and the children and feeding the husbands, and they still were out working, you know, milking the cows. If like that, they weren't really in the fields as much. That was more of the man's role, but everybody still worked together. The kids definitely had their role to play in their jobs, their chores that they did on the farm.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. Very nice. Mary?
I'm just thinking that there is a point at which there's going to become a bit of hierarchy where you're working on the farm that actually belongs to someone else. So at some point, you're no longer just working for yourself, you're working for someone else. And I don't know where that point is, but I'm sure it was way earlier than we all want to believe, that somebody was taking that superior role and you then were working for that individual or whatever it is now.
So there was a bigger task and somebody said, oh, we need to do this big task. And then other people got assigned pieces of the task. And because of that, there could be some perceived status. Oh, that person decides where we plant the thing or we build the barn. Anything coming up for Jenny or Christina or Martha on that revelation, which I think is very important, Jenny?
Nice. I'm feeling I'm gonna be
Christina,
harping on systems, but I'm like, it's
I
a
love
system.
it.
Like that's what it is. It's a system. And like even to Martha highlighting the different roles, like it's all still a part of the system. It's just like human form of little ants that all have their specific job and that's like what they do. And it keeps that ant colony functioning. Like that's what it does for humans too.
Mm, very cool. Jenny?
Yeah, I love, Christina, how you kind of take the emotion out of it, right? Just picture us like ants. Yeah, and
I think,
just
sorry.
one other like point is that when Christina was saying that work is a transaction of energy, maybe what evolved through time, and I don't know for sure, but is the manifestation of that energy, that what currency was used, maybe, right? Like if it's in this agricultural era, maybe that the manifestation of your energy was a whole bunch of grain, right? Or, versus in prior times it might have been different. And then I think as we go forward, we're seeing that manifestation of our energy might be different.
I think they may have viewed work differently then as well.
Tell us more, Martha.
Well, I just think that they came together and to survive, they did certain things. And I believe it was labor intensive, but they did not dwell on that.
They didn't have the luxury of sitting around the water cooler discussing. They're like,
Yeah, I mean, very seldom, I believe. I don't think you would ever hear a child in that day and age saying that they were bored.
yeah, they didn't know that emotion back then. Okay. Yeah, so a few things I'm going to just kind of recap what I'm hearing is that you could see the benefit of your work right away because you could eat or be warm or not, rained on, right? So those kind of things were immediately benefit. You could see right away. And there's probably some breaking up into roles. They're starting to become currency. Maybe there's a little bit of trade going on with people. Like I'll give you some grain for your eggs or something like that. And um, and then there's, the manifestation of energy that I heard. So, all right, we're going to move forward to the industrial age. So now we have manufacturing and child labor. Yes, no, just kidding. Get those kids working. All right. So let's think about how people moving from the farms, moving into the cities, and we have these big smokestacks, and we've got these machines that are ripping off your hair and your limbs. So fun. All right. What are we thinking? How is that work different manifestation of energy? What's coming up for you when you start thinking about that kind of work in that industrial age? Whoever can hit the mute button first is going to go. Martha.
Okay. Yeah, so I think
thinking?
that when we step into that and we start seeing the sweatshops or whatnot in the factory work, I think that before everything was tailored to working, hunting, gathering, everything for you, your family, or your community. And now there's the shift where you're working for somebody else and you're working because you still have those basic needs of providing, having a roof over your head and having food on the table, but you're not directly reaping the complete benefit of everything because it's not your own land or your own you're not out on the hunt yourself, and what you're bringing in is truly yours. Now you're working for somebody else, and there you definitely start to see more definitively the hierarchy of people.
But we can't hear you. You were saying things, but you're on mute.
Heavy stuff, heavy stuff. Mary.
No, I was just going to say, but one thing that is still consistent here in terms of the model of work, it was all about productivity. And I think when you get into the industrial revolution and when people are doing things with factories, that productivity got ratcheted up to something that was really measurable. I mean, with crops and hunting and the types of things that came before, a lot of things were out of your control, the weather, the fires, whatever it happened to be. But this is something that we started to really monetize and apply metrics to the productivity.
Mhm.
All right. Monetize. This is the first time in our conversation so far we've heard the word monetize. Very exciting. Control is another word. And productivity is another word we haven't heard yet. So,
Can I add one thing?
yes, Jenny.
It seems like it's becoming less personal, and maybe that's an assumption I'm making, but I think that was in the age of Taylor. I think Taylor was the one who introduced the productivity measure and everything, getting it down to the smallest chunk so that people were just doing one thing. And so my assumption is it became very impersonal and everybody was like a cog in the wheel. And it doesn't, thinking about that, it doesn't seem like they were very fulfilled, but we don't know, right?
Well, fulfilled is an interesting word. Anyways, Christina, come on in.
Yeah, just when you first presented the question, like the response in my brain was like exploitation was like also like, and when we're kind of talking about the hierarchies, like things got so divided because, and like work was in those atrocious conditions and children weren't seen as humans and all of the things, like they're just like exploitation. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So we have the luxury of living in the modern era and thinking about, these. I think a lot of it's from movies and like Les Mis and those kind of movies really impact us probably, right? But is there another way we could have gone? I mean, I'm just like thinking, could we have gone from agriculture to industrial with more humanity and more care for people? Is there like a mindset, a value system? I know we can't rewrite history, but I'm just wondering, is it inevitable? Was there no other way to get? Because the value and the good things we're not really talking as much about. I know Mary tried to pull it out, but really, what Mary I think was trying to say, and Mary, you can obviously jump in, is that we were able to get more food for everybody. Like there was less starvation. And then you did say control, right? We have control. It's taking the weather out as such an unpredictable thing. We have the ability to make a lot more food. More people can eat. Less people are starving to death, which is a really bad way to go, okay? It's like more people are able to live. Their lives may be very miserable still, but it is true that more and more humans were able to live and thrive and have babies, little babies, and those babies grew up and had more little babies, right? So we know that it was good in the fact that we grew humanity, but it wasn't great in the fact that the air was polluted and these people were getting mangled. All right, so I just want to say, was there another way? Could we have made the machines safer? Were people trying to make the machines safe? I know I'm just trying to get your minds to open and just see if there is any other way we could have done the Industrial Revolution more thoughtful, caring. Hard questions, I know, people. I don't know the answer.
You mean a kinder, gentler kind of robber baron approach?
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't
just
think,
asking.
I think there's something about the drive that some of these captains of industry had. Maybe they were on the spectrum. Maybe they had no real understanding of humans, only of money. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there as an idea.
Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. Jenny, is anything coming up for you on this question?
Well, I mean, the word that came up is like, we went through the Industrial Revolution at an expense, right? But again, I haven't done all my research, but you didn't assign any research out of this. So, were there pockets of where that didn't happen? Probably, right? I think we have these like images in our mind from these movies of how it was in the extreme cases, and it absolutely was not good, right? However, were there pockets that it didn't have to happen? Probably. Like we kept our humanity, we kept the care for the individual. I think a lot about Simon Sinek because I think he talks a lot about how a lot of society went awry during this stage because of just the drive toward productivity and at the great expense. So what would he say in terms of like, could have we avoided it? I'm sure, yes. Um, by keeping the care for humans at the forefront and ahead of profits and greed. Yeah.
Mary?
I just think society had become so hierarchical that it was almost as though people of a lower class that were born with no money and no prospects of getting money or education were seen as fodder. I really think there was just a whole mindset. We're just going to grind them in and grind them out, whether you're in a coal mine 24 days, 24 hours a day, or at a production line of some sort. I just think the whole attitude about the working class, I mean, I'm giving it a name that it maybe didn't even have then, but that it was a zeitgeist. I don't think there was a kinder, gentler way of doing it. Just because of how, I mean, our founding fathers had slaves on their plantations and they didn't give it a second thought. So, they kind of, again, it just kind of bifurcates the good of the world and the good of these few individuals that I have working for me. They don't see it coalesced.
Okay. This is
I agree.
really
People weren't
fascinating.
seen as people.
Martha, you're a little
They were
dark.
they were replaceable. If somebody died, it was okay. They could be replaced because there was always more. And I agree. I don't think there could have been. I think with greed that there's no way that it would have gone any way other than it did.
Wow. Very dark. Okay. All right. So, very interesting stuff coming up here. And I heard so many interesting things that I really want us to explore. So, the Industrial Revolution came at an expense. Grind the human down. The drive of these, what do you guys call them? The robber barons. The drive of the robber barons. And it would be good. And again, I didn't assign any homework to all of you, but it would have been nice. Is there any experiments in any countries that went a different path? Like, doesn't even know of maybe like, I mean, we can look at the Amish. I don't think the Amish existed at that time. I'd have to look up when the Amish came around to be. But you can see there's definitely groups of people who said, "Hey, we're not doing that. We're going to live a different way." And then we could sort of compare. Does anyone have anything coming up for them that they think of? Like, is there another group, Christina?
I would say like the tribal people had a different experience. I think from wherever kind of place you're going in the world, I think for a lot of places you're going to find the tribal people having a different relationship to work than the way that our industrialized nation had to work.
Okay. Yeah. So we have those experiments, those natural experiments of people who are untouched. We find them occasionally like the Amazon or somewhere in Africa. And we're like, oh, we go and experiment. We will watch them and study them. And yes, we have those folks. But what about a society who became industrial but didn't go through the robber baron, take advantage? Anyone? Mary coming up?
I feel like what you just brought up about the Amish, I don't think they were necessarily involved with machinery, but I do think certain religious sects, such as the Quakers,
Mm.
if they owned a factory, I bet they treated their people
Hmm.
better than perhaps another church-going guy.
Hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to bring religion into all of this, but what you said earlier, all we really see is this, uh, Hollywood version of
Mhm.
how awful everything always was.
Mhm.
So we're making assumptions that maybe weren't true in all cases.
That's true. It's fun. Okay, Jenny.
I wonder if the Nordic countries, just because now they have the highest, according to some metrics, they have the highest quality of life. Um, if anyone knows, is it like Denmark or Sweden, like
Yeah.
those countries? What happened there? Did they ever go through this, or was it always a little bit more humane? But and one thing that I think happened during this time was a specialization. And I think that specialization that we all went through the Industrial Revolution and such, I think that allows for progress because specialization really elevates, I think, capabilities, right, and resources. But the question is, in those Nordic countries, did they have specialization without that dehumanization? I don't know.
So I did some research since we last talked, and 1693 is when the Amish was founded, were founded. So I think that's really a fascinating time because I think that is right in the middle of the Industrial Revolution, which I think was in like an 18, somewhere around there. So, and they do seem to be very happy, but there's not 10 billion of them, right? So they didn't expand. So I want to just zoom out and talk about evolution. Evolution, right? The survival of the fittest. So we would like to believe, at least I would like to believe, that people who are kind to other people win and they make the most babies and so they have the most offspring. Now, I don't think that's actually true though, when you think about evolution, right? But it would be nice that people who treat other humans with value and have a working condition that's safe and nice for them, they're not a meat grinder, would those companies and those factories expand and grow and still be here? And anyways, I'm gonna throw that out as survival of the fittest. Is it survival of the kindest? I'm just gonna throw it. It could be very controversial, and I would love to hear you guys because we're gonna be transitioning very shortly into where are we going as humanity into the future and how can we learn from the past so that we don't do meat grinder people anymore. Anyone? Mary?
I was just going to go back to what Martha said earlier about community and about doing things for the good of the community. And whether that's just your immediate family or the larger community, to be successful, you needed to be a contributor. You maybe weren't the nicest person, but everybody did feel a sense of moving moving everything forward. And my little bit is actually somewhere in their subconscious, driving them to actually do that, even if it was a horrible job in a dreadful environment. So
Yeah.
that's a thought.
It'd be interesting to go back and read journals of people who worked in the factory in those times, but most likely they couldn't read or write, unfortunately, a lot of them. And so we don't have that view. Anyways, Jenny, thoughts?
Well, the survival of the fittest thing is, I don't know. I have mixed feelings here because the fittest might have been the political or like high status for whatever reason, good or bad, right? Uh, so I don't know. And why didn't kindness win? Again, maybe sometimes it did, but in general, I don't think kindness is the biggest status driver. I wish, but yeah, I mean, if I look back on my view of history, it's and even today, right? Like status is status and power, and that's what is the I don't know, looking at it from a super high level, back to the ants, it's who has the power, right? And is it right? Is it the nicest one? I don't think so.
Let's find out. Christina, what do you think? What's coming up for you right now in this conversation?
I mean, when you first posited the question, like, is there a possibility that we could have like gone another direction? I think my answer is no, because of culturally where like the veins that were already so entrenched into our version of humanity as it is like in this world. I don't think we were going to go another direction. Like, I think that kind of speaks to like the patriarchy and like all of these other isms that like were birthed in all of these spaces. And so it's kind of like, it gets a little deterministic to a certain degree, but like we're observing, and it's also like the way that life moves, like it goes from one polarization to the other extreme to the other to the other. So I don't know, I feel like the ball had already been rolling a little far down the hill, if that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. So now let's move into the current era of, I would say, like information, revolution, tech, and modern life, where a lot of people are gig workers. We have all kinds of gig workers, and we have, I'm just saying a few things to get your juices flowing. We have so much, I would say specialization is the name of the game. And I of course could have pulled up some stats, but I know of people myself who have jobs that when I went to college 20 years ago or 25 years ago, oh my gosh, they didn't exist, right? Those job titles, if you said, oh, I'm a prompt engineer, the person wouldn't even know what you're talking about. We have all kinds of job titles that didn't exist. And so specialization is the name of the game. People are getting more and more specialized. They get into it. You think about anyone with a PhD, it's like they're a PhD in some tiny little field that's like so tiny, no one else even knows what they're talking about. I might be, kind of being derogatory, but anyways, so we have all this specialization nowadays, and none of us can do anything by ourselves, really, right? We all have teams, every one of us. I know, Christina, even as a family and marriage therapist, you work with colleagues who you guys share like a scheduling system, or there are things that are kind of colleague level. Anyways, so we have lots of teams. We are helpless on our by ourselves, like really helpless. We can't find food. If they turned off electricity, we would all die. Right? We're so dependent as a human on all these specializations. And, so all these jobs exist. We need all these people. My husband, and I'm trying to get him and some of his colleagues to come on the next panel and talk about, they go out and look for utilities so someone doesn't drill into them. And that's the whole job. Someone else puts the utilities in, someone else tries to find them. There's all these interesting, bizarre jobs, and we can't even imagine what's going to happen in the future. But anyways, I'm going to stop talking. So get the juices flowing. What are you guys thinking about this current modern world of work? What is work right now? What's going wrong with it? What's going right? I'm just going to stop. And then after that, we're going to go to the future. Mary.
Well, Bet, as you alluded to the gig economy, I think work is becoming more and more decentralized with opportunities for people to work remotely, with AI assistance. I mean, there's just a lot of things that are increasing productivity without having to necessarily sit around a table with a bunch of your colleagues to figure it out. Although there's certainly value in that. I do think this decentralization is allowing people to pick up a gig here, and maybe also in their off hours, they're doing something else over here. So that they're becoming sort of an amalgamation of different skills. So they don't have just one job, they have more of a employability scale, a portfolio of skills, if you will, that they can deliver to a variety of people. And because things are becoming more decentralized, it allows people to actually take advantage of that and make money in a few different environments. It doesn't have to be just one paycheck from one company. So,
All right. Mary, you said so many things that were amazing. Decentralization. But that, what's funny, what comes up when I hear that is almost like going back to the hunter-gatherer. If you find that banana, you're going to go grab it, right? If you find the root, you're going to go, again, we're like going back to like everyone's trying to grab, but you're still maybe taking it back to the family. And then employability scale, very interesting. Did you just make that up now, or have you heard that before? I love it. I really like it. Okay. And then a portfolio. So Christina, I would love to hear from you on this one because you are and you have a specialization. And when you hear about this gig economy, where are you thinking about yourself on that in that world?
Um, I think about it externally. So one part of it is like inflation and like our economy, like your job doesn't sustain you the way that it used to, like in previous times. Like there, it's necessary to have multiple jobs and multiple skills, and like things to that degree come up. Um, and so, whereas in another world, it could be, I don't know, less about scarcity and urgency. But I find that that's a difficult thing. And if we're coming to like where we are just in the state of like employment right now, like it is so hard to get a job. And I know that from like the clientele that I work with, like right now, it is scary. So the what I kind of see as the challenges about work now, and these are things that I have sculptured my life to combat, is having management that doesn't know how to manage or like be the nervous system that is like holds the line while their workers figure things out. Like we find that there's a lot of management that is like going into a unsettled, like dysregulated state and amplifying. Like you can only regulate from a regulated nervous system. And if you're coming at it from a dysregulated state, you're going to be like putting that into the water for everyone else. And that's going to create a culture that is where we're at today. I think so. I think about that.
Wow, so many yoga teacher things here, Christina. Dysregulated emotional state or nervous system state. And so you're saying the management is sensing so much fear and they're passing that on to their staff. Is that what you're saying?
They don't know how to regulate themselves, and they're projecting that all over. They're just ignorant to
Mm-hmm.
what that is and how that has an impact on everyone around them. And that ignorance is harmful. It is very harmful. So I kind of look at it because, like, even to my job, like I have had to maintain the value of like aligning with my manager or supervisor, because in my world they're like a mentorship, they're like a guide, like and not everybody has that luxury to choose that. And so if we have management that is not developmentally prepared to take on that role, but they're getting it because of whatever other reasons they're getting it, like we're where we are today. And now I think what's interesting is that these younger generations, like Gen Z, Gen Alpha, that's going to be coming up, they don't care. Like that their relationship to losing the job is less urgent than, let's say, a millennial or those who are older than that, because their relationship to the future is different than everybody else's, what we believed our future was going to be like. So anyways.
That was a lot, and very, like, I feel like we need like a whole nother podcast just on leadership and the responsibility and the impact. As a yoga teacher, I know this because if I come into a yoga class like all fresh or sure, whatever, if I had an argument with my husband or something, I'm like, like that's not great, right? So learning how to calm center yourself before you go into other situations is just like absolutely critical. And I'm sure Christina, as a therapist, this is like you have to do it's boundaries, right? It's boundaries so that you're not, spraying emotional, something all over the place. All right. Okay, so Christina went in a totally interesting direction. If anyone has any other things coming up for them when we think about the modern world, the gig economy, and by the way, I would love to hear from Jenny, who's literally worked at one company for, is it 25 years? 24
No,
years?
no, not 25. More than 20. We'll put it that way.
Okay, it's around somewhere around 20-ish. What's coming up for you, Jenny?
Well, so much. I love the leadership topic as well. But what originally came up when you mentioned the question and Mary discussed was fragility. I feel like the world is very fragile right now. Like, yes, it's decentralized. However, we're not decentralized in a way that we could, most of us, be self-sufficient, right? Like Beth mentioned, if electricity goes out, like, what do we do? So that's actually super interesting. And yes, we can be more productive and contribute in the nooks and crannies, but in a very specialized way that, again, it feels fragile to me. And I kind of worry, given the speed of advancement now, are we going to end up in a place where we've lost some of our learnings, more fundamental learnings? And maybe that's kind of how the leadership thing comes in, right? Like everything's quick and fast, and we can use AI, and that's great. And it looks bright and shiny, but we've lost the fundamentals of what it means to be a good leader, what it means to build something solid. I don't know. So that's what originally came up, though, is the word fragile.
Okay. All right. We're going to wrap this up in the next 10 minutes and then do final thoughts. We're going to now move to the future. The future. We have a fragile, disconnected world where people can't emotionally and nervous system regulate themselves. And we have Gen Alpha. I haven't heard about them yet. So they're coming in. They have a different view of the world. And what is funny to me, Jenny, and I'm not trying to make fun of you, but you said like we lost this, but we were just talking about the robber barons who ran all the industrial. I don't think they were regulating, they were just like grind those people down. Oh, they're tired, kick them out and get some new ones in here, right? With a cane or something. So I don't really know, did we ever have a time when we had just like fantastic leadership that was so mindful? And I don't know if that ever happened, but I would love to envision. Now we can do anything we want to. No one's stopping us. We can envision whatever we want. All right. So let's lean in and let's put our creative thinking hats on. If we were to envision what is the future of work, and I just am coming up just from the little bit here is taking more time to get educated so that people can learn these things like self-regulation. I know that the EQ stuff sort of has been coming more and more, but I think that it's not probably there. It needs a lot more, but having more curriculum about that kind of thing. Anyways, I'm just going to throw that out there. What is the future of work? Where are we going? Is it going to be terrible? Anyways, Mary.
I'm a big AI believer. I mean, I use it every day. And I think as it gets more mature, as I think people are upskilled in how to use it, it actually you can perform at genius level in a much reduced amount of time, which then leaves us this other time to do self-improvement, to be more creative, to figure out how to regulate your emotions. I really think it's going to be one of those, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be painful to get there, but I do think there's light at the end of the tunnel, that this sort of collaboration with artificial intelligence and blockchain and all the other things that are going to have to go into this new economy is going to have a positive result on people in these white collar thought jobs that are going to be participating that way. I think when it comes to more hands-on stuff, like, my body worker, I don't think he's going to get replaced anytime soon, but I think in this, whatever it is, 45% of the population is white collar work. So I think we will feel a big impact.
Okay, so we heard from our techno optimist that I recruited
Right.
for the panel. But I'm interested in all thoughts here.
Yeah.
Jenny, your hand is up.
I can be the emotional optimist. I think that there are some pockets of students being taught at a younger age to be aware of their emotions. And like this app, How We Feel, right? It's a free app, and I actually forgot the book, but they're teaching it in schools, right? To be aware of your emotions, be kind to each other. I know my nieces and nephews, they're in school and they're being taught emotions at a very early age. So I am more optimistic on the emotional awareness and regulation of our younger generation. And hopefully also they take care of themselves better. Maybe wellness. Like, I know I have some Gen Zs working for me, and they will talk about their wellness, my well-being. And I'm like, that's interesting. It's your first year on the job and you're talking about your well-being. And, I think that's good. They're tuned into these things. So I think that's what gives me optimism.
All right, Christina, how does the systems thinker think about all this? The future, Christina.
I think we are evolving. Like we're as a just a humanity is just constantly evolving. And I do agree, like our younger generations are going to be more emotionally intelligent and competent. Um, but I think there's going to be other challenges that we didn't realize that were going to be there that will also equally unfold too. Like even with AI, like would we say maybe in 100 years, like people don't even read anymore because like they've been read to their whole life, or they've, and what capabilities might they have then that makes, reading obsolete, or, like it's just kind of like we don't know what it'll be like. Um, just kind of in the same way that I don't think any of these other generations could have fathomed like where we are today. Um, so yeah, life is a big sway, like back and forth of kind of things. Um,
Very nice. Well, you guys all have a very positive outlook, and I am a techno optimist, so I also have a very positive outlook. And so things that I think are challenges. So let's just talk about a few of these challenges before we do like our final thoughts. What are we going to do about people who are like just not getting involved in technology? Should we have training for them? Should we have UBI? What do we do? And how do we make sure no one's left behind? Really, that's the question. Is how do we make sure no one's left behind as we move into the next phase of work? And then maybe I'm phrasing something completely wrong and you don't agree that you're like, no one will be left behind. Skepticism is welcome.
I know. I'm like, people will be left behind,
Yeah.
and being okay with the reality that some will be left behind. And, I think that's more where I land.
Okay. So what do we think about universal basic income? Is it something that we must have? Every society must have a universal basic income? Or is it like we just have jobs that we create? I don't know. I'm going to stop talking. Who's coming up with solutions? I need solutions, people. Bring them in. Bring them in. I'm looking at you, Jenny. Come on. Do you have some good ideas?
I do not have thoughts on universal income. No, I don't. I'm sorry.
There are
It's a topic that I don't really think a lot
there
about.
are
But
some
back to
studies.
being left behind thing,
Yeah.
I think that there will be some people who don't, and that's okay. I think it's all a choice. You're not going to force everyone to do this. There's enough free resources that if they want to do it, they can do it. So it's a self-selection, in my opinion.
I just want to let you know that OpenAI did fund a 3-year universal basic income study, and I can put the link in the show description. I went and read it, and it didn't actually help. It was not good. It didn't help people. And I think, anyways, I'm going to see what Mary has on this, and then I have another little question. Mary.
I was just going to go back to our survival of the fittest discussion earlier. You're going to get left behind if you don't do what you need to do to survive and be smart and be kind.
I mean, I think these are really good principles to go back to think about the hunter-gatherer. If they didn't get out there and work, if they were just sitting on the tree, lounging about, and everyone else is out there scrounging, I mean, how long would the society put up with that? I mean, I think it's a really good, important. Is that too mean, or we all come to the same point here?
I don't know. You sound like you don't agree with the universal basic income strategy.
Me?
If they're just going to sit around and lounge around and let the rest of the world do stuff.
The data on this research project was pretty interesting, and actually was really fascinating because women who got the UBI actually did do better overall, and the men that got it were worse off. They spent more on cigarettes and alcohol, and they didn't make any like improvements or learn things. Anyways, I thought that was a very interesting, like controversial topic, which we should probably dig into. Christina, you went off mute there. Did you have something to add on this?
It kind of goes a bunch of different directions, but one of them, I think, part of our evolution is empathy, I think, as a humanity, like, and that development. I think things can get into extremes where like people are going to take care of each other, if we're kind of thinking about those ways. So it just kind of depends on what extreme we get to. And yeah, that is a really interesting thought about how the gender differences between the two. And I think, or my curiosity is kind of like women typically will like take those resources and like, amplify, not usually, but like I think there's men's relationship to money and being given money without having the energy exchange can be more ego crushing and like things like that. I don't know. I think about those kinds of things and then just like the accessibility. I don't know. So I'm curious. That's an interesting.
I'm hoping there's more research on this as time goes on, because we really need to know. And so let's talk about values. Values. What are the values that we should be amplifying, and embodying as we move into the future of work? And I just like robber baron values: grind them down, dispose, get rid of them and get them in here. The younger, the better, right? So now we're moving into hopefully a kinder, I love Christina's idea of empathy and having more time to learn emotional regulation. I love that. And I'm hoping for creative jobs. I know not everyone's creative, but I really do think a lot of people have creative, and some people love scheduling. I know Jenny loves like the details and putting data together, and she loves that stuff. So everyone has something they like. And if you think about spiral dynamics or hierarchy, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the top is self-actualization, right? So if we could think like maybe everyone could find their dream job and they could do it for 10 hours a week. And I don't know, this get into utopia here. But okay, so values. Do we want people to do dangerous work? there's a lot of dangerous jobs, and men usually end up with those, like roofing and underwater drilling. I don't know, deep sea fishing. You hear about these jobs on TV. But anyways, like, what are we thinking? Do we want to value life and have people do less dangerous work, or should we just let people do any kind of work? Anyways, I'm gonna again stop. I just want to see what values should we be embodying as we go forward, or could we be, or do you think we will be?
I mean, the values I embody as a worker in this world is I value my time a lot. And I also think that's most conducive to the work that I do is having more time rather than being swamped, with things and just like overextended. Um, so I have sought that out, like keeping a caseload low. And then, like, within this past year, now I'm teaching yoga, which is like a hobby, but it's also like an expression, it's an art. And I do agree, kind of, I think you mentioned earlier, like, what if everybody was kind of doing something creative but I think a lot of things are art, like even to like scheduling people, like that is an art form like that I haven't dabbled in. I think everybody can have exposure to that, but like I think we all have those little things. And I would hope I don't know, that's my hope, is that everyone finds their alignment with their path, like because that, like, it makes the work that I do like a safe base, rather than like a point of stress or like, but it's something that anchors my ability to just regulate myself, like outside of being a therapist, but like being a human, like being a therapist and being a yoga teacher both work for my system to be functioning the way that I function in the world. And I would hope for that for everybody with whatever it is, so that they can function, within their system, kind of what we touched about earlier.
I love that. And personally, that sounds so great. And if we could all find work that lets us be our ideal self, and whatever that is, if you love digging into, cost analysis or something. Anyways, how about the other two panelists? Anything coming up for you when you start thinking of values? What would be nice in the last few minutes here?
Yeah, I went off mute. I love the concept of like you can refine your craft no matter what you do. And I think everyone should kind of have that joy refining their craft and having the right amount of stress. Some people love stress, and that, right? So it's finding the job that fits you. And I take people through a set of career discussions, and the first one is defining their values. How have they made decisions in their past? What shaped them? What's important to them? And then the second discussion is like, how does that inform like their dreams? And it's something that I'm borrowing. I didn't make it up. So I can't think of the author's name, but anyway, I hope in the future everybody can kind of understand their values. It's so funny how if you ask somebody about their values, they don't know, but if you ask them to tell you their life story, you can pick them out. You can say, oh, you value relationships, you value teamwork, you value having a challenge that you can't do, you value change, you value routine. Everyone's different. Help them figure that out. Help them find a dream that is aligned with that, and then take steps to get there. And help them see it like a craft that they can refine. And we're all a work in process. So I think it's, again, I'm in a fortunate part of the world where we can do this. And I hope to help other people do it too.
Wow, you guys are all becoming super articulate and amazing. All this, no, I'm just kidding. You guys were great all along. Okay, so we're almost done. Mary, what do you think we should value going forward? What do you vision this future of work? What do you envision as a hope? And also, by the way, if you want to give us some realism, we're fine with that. If you're like, no, it's going to be terrible, just tell us.
No, I don't think so. No. I mean, I agree with what we've been talking about, how the next generation is certainly coming along with a lot more emotional intelligence and the ability to really take care of themselves and understand what they need. And I think those of us over a certain age just never had that as part of their makeup. But yeah, values. Yeah, to Jenny's point, everybody has different values, and it's just a case of finding what those are and making sure that you're making the most of that self-knowledge. Yeah.
I love it. All right, we're going to do a final thought, maybe a plug, maybe go take a yoga class or do some meditation. If you have a book you want to tell people to go read or a coaching service that you need to get people to do, it could just be go meditate on a rock. But we're going to do a final round here of how can we each move forward into the world to live our best lives. Any final thoughts? And let's go to Christina.
Oh, final thoughts. Well, you could go if you're ever in Oakland area and you'd like to take a yoga class with me. I'm at Banana Yoga in the Temescal area. I teach Saturdays at 10:30. It's lovely. And my final thought, I guess, would be the quote that is most resonant in my head right now for whatever reason, because I quote it a lot, but as you begin to walk the path appears, by Rumi. So you just got to start walking and it just will happen, whatever is meant, and just trust in your capacity to take on whatever arises. Like that's literally life is just a bunch of challenges that we're arising to and figuring out.
It's so beautiful. Thank you, Christina. All right, I'm going to go around clock. Anyways, Jenny, you're next. Final thought, plugs, anything people can do to move into the future in a positive way.
Well, I just wanted to give credit to those career conversations that I just mentioned. It's described in a book called When They Win, You Win by Russ Laraway. It's a very nice formula for how to help folks have a career, discover their dreams and work toward it. Final thoughts. Well, this has been very insightful. I really appreciate the other panelists, and it's causing me to think a little differently about today. And like, where are we in these cycles? What should we be opening our eyes to? Because what are we doing today that's like in 10 years, they're going to say that was crazy. So no, that's my thought, is just to be a little bit more critical or think about how I'm shaping my work today and how I'm approaching it for the future as well.
And do you want to plug your coaching service? Is that available? If one of us wanted to.
No, not yet available. You can, if you're a research scientist and looking for a great early career development program, you can reach out to me.
All right. And people can find you on your LinkedIn, right?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you, Jenny. And let's go to Mary Miller. Final thoughts. Anything you want to plug?
Final thoughts. Yeah, I think just stay curious, because that's all we really have is being aware. I think awareness is how we can really grow, is being curious, staying aware, and that'll get you on Christina's path. I don't really have a plug. If you need an excellent technology marketing person, you could give me a call and I'll help you win.
Very good. Very nice. All right. Well, that is 1 hour. Thank you. So my panelists today were Mary Miller, Jenny Topinka, Christina Martinez, and Martha Padron. Martha, unfortunately, had to leave us a little bit early. But if you want to learn more about my panelists, go to the description and read all about them. And this has been Making Meaning. If you've found value in this, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Take care, everyone. Bye.